Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Witches and Wine. This is the show where we talk about witchy stuff and we drink wine. Clink and drink. Clink and drink to our guest over there. Mm.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, as you might notice, my partner in crime, my husband, Silenus, he sells wine for a living. So he's out making money, getting us free wine. So I'm doing it solo. So before we get started, I am your hostess with the mostest, Lola Stardust. And we like to do a little disclaimer before we get started. It has been brought to our attention that sometimes people, when they watch our show, they don't like the fact that we partake in wine and talk about witchy stuff. They say we might get a little tipsy. It's not very professional. It's not, So we came up with this wonderful thing that you can do. There's an X in the corner of your screen, and you can click the X and we'll disappear. You have control. It's magic. Isn't that nice, everybody? So, yeah, there's an X. If you don't like it, click it. If you like it, welcome to the dark side. All right. So, before we get started, I get to introduce the wine today. So, I have to read notes because my husband, like I said, he does this for a living. He can just rattle it off. He had to send me notes about our wine. So, the wine that we are drinking tonight is called McBride Sister Sparkling. And let me tell you a little bit about this wine. This wine is made by two sisters who shared the same dad. Both grew up apart from each other. One here in the US and the other is in New Zealand. Upon their father's passing, they met and found out both had a passion for wine and decided to start a winery together using the connections both had in their home locals. This wine uses grapes from New Zealand, and it is crisp and refreshing, which it is. I love it. With just enough acidity. This bottle will run you around $20, and it's really good pairing for some shellfish or Thai food. And my husband chose this wine because we're going to talk to our guest here, and she's very much into the women's mystery. And so we thought it was cool that this was created by two women, two sisters, and it's sister power. And so I thought it was very fitting for our guest. So let me take a sip here. This is really good. I'm usually not a fan of rosés, but a nice sparkling rosé is a good summer drink. So, all right. So let's get to our guest. I am so excited. I've been reading up on this guest. I have so many things I want to talk about. Let's welcome Yeshe Matthews. Did I say it right? Yeshe? Yeshe
Yes,
Matthews.
yeah.
Welcome, Yeshe. Welcome
Thank
to
you
the
so
show.
much for having me. Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you, Lola. And how great to get to enjoy. I wish I was drinking that wine with you. It sounds wonderful. Thank you so much
I know.
for it.
And we love sisters doing it for themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we picked the wine. So, and we got some people in our comments. Hello, Hestia's Muse, and hello, Stephen. Welcome. So let's get started. I like to talk about the origin story. So when did you know? I mean, so there's two different questions here, really. We always kind of know before we come out as a witch or as a pagan or whatever you identify as. Um, so I like to know when you knew, and what did that look like? Was that in your childhood? Like, tell us about that.
Well, I would say I entered my witch era when I was about 7 years old. And actually, I think many of the folks listening to this are going to get a kick out of this. But when I was growing up, my mom used to watch the Phil Donahue show, which was a pretty popular talk show in the 70s and early 80s. And Lori Cabot, Priestess of Salem, was on the Phil Donahue show. She used to go on there kind of sometime, periodically, like around Halloween and witches.
I remember that.
So when I was maybe about like 6 or 7, I remember my mom was watching Phil Donahue, and Lori Cabot was sitting on that stage, and she had her black hair and her makeup and her cloak, and she was explaining about witchcraft. And I literally like walked up to the television and like put my hand there, and I was like, this. And I was in
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
like first grade or so. And then or maybe second grade. And I remember like not not too far after that, I brought a pair of black high-heeled dress-up shoes to school with me, to
Ooh.
Catholic school, mind you.
Oh,
And
oh
when I got to
no.
school, I took off my little, sneakers, and I put on my high-heel black witchy shoes. And my mom got a phone call that afternoon that was like, um, she's walking around wearing black high heels and telling everyone she's a witch. So I'd say that's like my, witch origin story was
Yes.
I had that moment. I mean, I really listened to what Priestess Lori Cabot was saying about
Yeah.
actual witches. I really like we respect the earth, we love animals, we, honor the cycles of the sun and the moon. And I just felt like I really clicked with all that. And I didn't come out as a witch until much, much later
Oh yeah.
because I did go to Catholic school, kindergarten through 12th grade. My family was very strictly Catholic, but I was secretly a witch. I was reading like Scott Cunningham books and
Oh yeah.
learning about astrology and learning about herbs that from then on, really. And like it obviously got easier when I was a teenager because I
Yeah.
could like go to places myself, go to bookstores, go to like the herb shop and buy like herbs and make brews. And I loved doing that. And then in terms of like, when did things get serious? I would
Yeah.
say that like when I was young, I was serious for being a child, but
Yeah.
it really got serious when I was in my 20s, living on my own, and,
Mhm.
figured out that this was really my path. And, I learned tarot and I studied with different teachers over the years. And I'm 48 now, and I just still keep on going and still keep on growing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because so many and that's why when I talk about the origin story, I think a lot of us, I mean everyone I've ever talked to really about when they knew, before you really know what it is or cuz like for me it was kind of the same. I was a child and I just I always knew the moon was I didn't call her the goddess. I just said she and the sun was he.
Mm.
And I that's how I talked to them, and I sat in my parents' backyard, and I was probably, 7 or 8 and sitting and talking to the moon, and they had a beautiful, vegetable garden, and they had the big, bean stalks, and I kinda sat amongst those, and I felt like it was my little hideaway, and there was something very magical, but I never in a million years was going, "Oh, I'm a witch," until I started seeing things on TV and seeing people talk about that. I did the same thing. I snuck in the back of the bookstore and read the Big Blue Book, Uncle Bucky's Big Blue
But
Book.
like,
I
huh?
didn't want anyone to know I was reading it. So I would hide, and the lady who owned the bookstore was a witch and she would just kind of look at me and I was about 16. But yeah, then in my 20s, which was in the 90s, that's when all of the craft came out and charmed. And so it
Yes.
was like, yeah, so I was like, oh geez, like I think
All of a
that's what I
sudden.
yeah, I think that's what I am. And so yeah, it's like my 20s, the same thing, but I got really serious and coming out about it because most of my 20s was partying a lot. But then when I settled down and stuff and had time, it's probably been, I'm 51 now, so in my 40s is when I really said, "Hey, I'm a witch," and I came out. And yeah, so I love hearing people's stories because we all kind of it's similar, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
love that there's that recognition, and then there's, the journey between the moment you recognize it to where you're actually living it and where you kind of like wake up inside of your life and realize that you're really, really doing it, and
Mhm.
I kind of feel like that's the true initiation, no matter how many other initiations that you have, that the true
Yeah.
first initiation is the moment between when you knew and when you knew, and we're really doing it.
Yes.
Like,
Oh,
yeah,
I love that. So I think yeah, because we talk a lot about especially if you're in that kind of tradition where there's initiations, and I call it leveling up or elevating, or but that is an initiation, because when you can know in your heart, and a lot of people say they find home, they feel they found their home, and that is a huge part of it, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So I want to talk about oh, there's so many things. I don't know what I want to hit first here. Okay, I'll just go in the order of my little notes. I'm very organized. I'm a Capricorn. So
I'm a Taurus.
I
We'll get
read that
along great.
you're what are you?
I'm a Taurus. We'll get
What'd you say?
along great.
Oh, earth
Hmm.
signs. Yes. Clink and drink to earth signs. I love that. And Yesha's drinking beer, and she said, "I hope this is okay. It's witches and beer." I'm like, it can be whatever you want. So yeah. Mm.
Two earth
This is really
signs.
good. I know. It is 5 o'clock over here. I am day drinking. Okay, so let's get started. I read that you are a mandala priestess of the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple. Sounds fascinating. I don't know what that is. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, in witchcraft, we might refer to like our wheel of the year.
Hmm.
And in like the Mayan calendar, there's the wheel of the Nahuales, and there's also the like wheel of the numbers and how they interlock. And these are systems whereby we understand a magical kind of time. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, a mandala is a spatial and temporal relationship to reality.
Yes.
It's the sphere of experience, and it's not just the flat thing that we see on the tabletop.
Hmm.
It's spherical, and it's got dimension. And so mandala priestess means that I am the person who created the mandala of this particular temple. If I went to visit somebody else's temple, whoever created that and keeps it rolling, that's the mandala priestess there. Some people
Okay.
use the word, like in Wiccan practice, they use the word high priestess. In Dianic practice, we say high priestess. I don't use that term anymore, only because I'm not specifically Wiccan, and I don't want to take
Hmm.
anything from
Yeah.
anybody. I don't want it to be confusing. And also because, it then sort of connotes that our temple has a strong philosophical basis in Tibetan
Hmm.
Buddhism. So, although not everybody who belongs to our temple is a Buddhist, and they don't have to be, for me, Buddhism has been one of the things that forms the philosophical basis of how I operate. So I use those words to kind of suggest that. And Mount
Okay.
Shasta here in Northern California, where we're currently under 2 feet of snow, it was much more before. This is actually like very little now compared to how much there
Yeah.
was. Um, it's beautiful, tall, 14,000-foot mountain, sacred to all of the numerous indigenous peoples of this land, the Yurok, the Karuk, the Winnemem Wintu. They believe that they were born from Panther Meadows, the spring up on the mountain, that's the womb of creation. So it's a very holy place. It's a very sacred place to the local people who have been tending this mountain for thousands of years. And it magnetizes and draws people from all over the world to come,
Hmm.
people from Bolivia, from Spain, from Japan, from England, from Australia.
Oh
We
wow.
get a lot of people. And the Pacific Crest Trail, which is similar to the Appalachian Trail, it's a big hiking trail for
Yeah.
the West Coast. It runs right through here. So we also get a lot of people who are trail hikers. So I
Yeah.
was magnetized to this area. When I moved here in 2015, it just felt like I was coming home, even though I'd never lived here before. And I started this goddess temple. It was part of the reason why I came here was I felt like that's what I was supposed to do.
Oh, wow. And so where did you live before you were drawn to Northern California?
I lived in the Bay Area. Before I was here, I lived in the Bay Area for 13 years. And before that, I'm from New York originally. Um,
Oh, so East Coast coming to the West Coast. Okay.
yes.
Big
And
difference
actually,
between East Coast attitudes?
yeah, actually, I mean, yes and no, right? It is, of course, there's a huge cultural difference. But as I've noticed, um, when I moved here in 2002, I wasn't near, the internet wasn't nearly what it is now. Like, basically, back then, you just had email and, like, little bit of internet. At
Yeah.
least that's how
Yeah.
it was for me. Now that the internet is everywhere, I notice that I feel less differences because our world has become closer together and, like,
Yeah.
more global. But the definitely want to eat your bagels on the East Coast and your avocados on the West Coast for sure, not the other way around. Um,
But you
it
can put
isn't
avocado
water in New York
spread on a
City.
bagel.
You
Yeah.
know, the yeah, the water in New York City, it is what makes the bagel, I think. And
Mhm.
by the time an avocado makes its way from California to New York, you know how avocados are like, no, it's not time. It's not
Yeah.
time. It's
Yeah.
not time. Now I'm done. Like, you know, so by the time an avocado makes it over there, you're buying, you're paying like $4 for something that's not quite ideal.
Ready.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm making a joke, but I think that those are like, that the differences are like that. They're surface level differences and their convenience and their localized differences.
Yeah.
But in terms of like our, everybody's having big hearts,
Yeah.
definitely everybody has big hearts. I
Oh, yeah.
actually just celebrated my 20-year California anniversary last year. So
Oh, nice.
I was, I'm 48. So
Mhm.
I've been 28 years in New York and then
Mhm.
20 years in California. And I don't know what's going to happen when I get to being 56.
Right?
I think I'm going to have to move to Canada.
You're gonna split in two. It's
Right. Or Mexico, either Mexico or Canada. Right.
right? Yeah. Well, and when you were talking about more of the mandala and the Buddhism and stuff like that, I find it really fascinating that us and do you identify as a witch, first of all? Do
Yeah.
you call
Oh,
yourself okay.
definitely.
So I think it's really cool that us witches love to look at so many different esoteric belief systems, and I find it fascinating. And so I hear because I know a lot of witches that are very into shamanism and so I think it's really cool that we can actually take that and work that into our craft. Have you found any resistance with because what we were talking about earlier, how sometimes yes, us witches we try to be accepting and we try to be open, but sometimes some witches, some it's in any kind of group.
Mhm.
They can be critical. They can be like, my way is the only way or blah, blah, blah. Have you ever found that doing that studying in because I mean, I'm looking here, you Tibetan Buddhism, Siberian, Mongolian shamanism. Uh, we're going to talk about was it Ifa?
Ifa. Mhm.
Ifa, Mayan cosmology. I mean, these are like a lot of different types of belief systems that from some of the traditional witchcraft that I've studied and been exposed to, that would almost be like poo-pooed on. You know what I'm saying? Because it's have you ever been met with any like you're not a you're more new age or you're just, whatever or has it just been like, you know what? You're doing you.
Well, I think it's really interesting. This is such a great question.
I
I
ask
would
good questions.
say, you do. You're fantastic. Well, Earth sign, Um, so I think that this is the way I'd sort of put it. Anybody who's super traditional in whatever it is they're doing will always and where their identity within that is predicated upon being more of something than someone else,
Mhm.
they're always going to have a problem with somebody. So like the most strict Buddhist will be like, oh, sure, a witch.
Yeah.
The most strict witch will be like, Buddhism
Oh,
doesn't belong here. You know,
yeah.
but that'll be in anything I study, right?
Yeah.
I think what makes me a witch, and I want to just like make a like loving distinction between
Yeah.
being Wiccan and being a witch, like capital witch W or lowercase witch. I'm a
Yeah.
lowercase witch, right? And because
Mhm.
I don't say that out of like, I want people who are Wiccan to really have the respect they deserve. They deserve the capital W. They've done so much work to have this belief system accepted in things like the Pentacle Project for headstones of soldiers. There's a lot here. So I want to just really be respectful that I'm a lowercase W witch. But the thing that makes a lowercase w witch is that she is fundamentally, or they, or he,
Yeah.
but I'm just speaking for myself, is fundamentally a technician, and that the technique of the study of techniques of magical creation is fundamental to who we are. So of course we're going to study things. We're going to see, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it?
Yeah.
And where, instead of it being extractive, it can be unifying. And so when people like actually say to me like, well, like, what would you say like your real religion is?
Mm.
Like, I'm the very few things they all have in common. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I feel like, witchcraft and spirituality and religion, they've all we have to evolve.
Mhm.
And there was always these very defined, people like their defined uh titles or labels, or we are in a time where that's important, and I think that is important.
Yeah.
But
They've earned it, right?
yes,
Like if they've earned
absolutely.
it,
Yes,
of course.
absolutely. Yeah, but I also feel that when you call yourself a witch, whether it's capital W or lowercase w, you are saying that you're thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
I mean, you're reaching for the things that are outside of the norm, and all those things that you're talking about that you have studied, those are not your mainstream beliefs. Those are not your main. And so I feel that as witches, and some people say, "Oh, that's an eclectic witch," and I that's awesome too. But there's still a label for it. There's always a
Right.
title or a label. But I just feel like, you know what, you feel it, and if you're saying, "Look, I'm a witch, but I am real. I want to look at some voodoo practices, or
Mhm.
I want to look at shamanism, or I want to." I even know witches that like to look at the more Luciferian witchcraft or the satanic type of, and I feel like I wouldn't expect anything else but to do that. If that is what's calling you and you want knowledge, then go do it.
Mhm.
And
That's
I feel that's what we should be promoting, right?
I think so too. And I think it's, I think that there is like one subtle difference in terms of like an eclectic, which, maybe I'm mistaking how people use the term, but when I think of eclectic witch, I think of somebody who is sort of picking just pieces of things
Mhm.
and putting them together.
Yeah.
But my approach has been that in each of the things that I do, I fully immerse in that
Yes.
thing. It's a cultural matrix. It's not just a practice or two or a book or two. It's that there's an like taking classes, studying with teachers, living teachers, and really immersing. And then at the end of the day, there's like you know, you might say the like multi-faith like the multi-faith committee in my head, and
I
not
like that.
all of the things that I do agree with each other. So part of the
Yeah.
reason why I've set up our temple the way I've set it up, so that we work through a mandala, a wheel of the year, where we work with different goddesses in each month, is that in her month, when we're with that goddess, we're immersing in
Okay.
everything of her, like
Yeah.
all of the different aspects. And I'm not in a hurry, like I'm not in a rush to know everything already. So
Oh,
each year,
yeah.
if I pass by one of the goddesses for that month and I learn something new. I read one book, I connect a little more deeply, I attend a lecture, whatever. I've learned something, and then next year I'll learn more. So I don't feel like I need to be an expert in all of these things,
Mm-mm.
and I don't feel like I need to blend them, although I used to. That was something
Oh,
in the early days of my path where I was kind of just putting things together, but I think that's a normal part of development when we're coming into
yeah,
our spiritual knowing, is like we kind of have to sample from a buffet and figure out who we are. So now,
yeah.
the way I kind of teach it in the temple is every single person on earth, no matter what traditions they belong to, every single one of us is a religion of one, because nobody is going to
Oh,
know for better than you for you, and nobody is going to have your unique relationship to what you're doing the same way you will, even if you do it with a group, even with even if you study it for many years. You can be part of things, but you're still, at the end of the day, what happens in your practice is really unique to you. So
I love
how it
religion of one. Clink and drink to religion of one. If this is a drinking game, we're gonna be loaded because
I
you're
only
you're
have
bringing up
this.
you're bringing up so many amazing things that I want to clink and drink to.
Well,
Mm.
thank you.
All right, you are. This is I. Oh my god, I love this conversation. Aoife, IFA. Can you tell us what that is? Because I read that you have studies and practice in all the things I listed: Tibetan Buddhism, shamanism. Aoife, can you? Maybe other people know. I did not know. Can you explain what Aoife is?
Yes.
IFA.
In West Africa, amongst the Yoruba speaking peoples, these are people, various different distinctive communities of people with their own unique traditions, their own unique aspects of culture, who all connect around a central language system. And within that language
Mhm.
system, there are a lot of common concepts, up to and including the worship of spirits that are deified ancestors in some cases, nature spirits in some
Yeah.
cases. These are spirits who occupy the layer between the human realm and the ultimate, which it is a monotheistic religion. There is one ultimate pervasive deity, but who largely stays out of human affairs and instead has the orishas, the beings that occupy the realm in between the ultimate and the human. So Ifa is the system of divination and practices around divination that are part of a religious system called Yeshe. And Ifa is the practice of divination to help you communicate with your ancestors as well as the orishas, the Awon Orisha. And
Yeah.
I first became interested in this in about 2009, 2008, I think. Like in that time, I read Louisa Tisha's book Jambalaya, and then I met her, and I started to attend
Ooh.
monthly offerings that she would bring to my store, the Sacred Well. She would do a monthly ceremony there and teaching, so I started to attend those. And honestly, for 8 years, I was completely just, I guess it was soon earlier than that, because for 8 years I stayed outside of the like initiatory sphere of this practice,
Yeah.
partially because as a white American woman, I felt like I wasn't sure if I really belonged there.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to that more in a minute, but um because obviously I'm there now. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
talk about that, because it is something that's sensitive and complicated. And I think also really a blessed thing is that I sort of stayed outside of it. I didn't seek to go further. I attended rituals, and I was welcomed as like a cousin, to come to
Yeah.
things. And then I went through a period of time in the like 2013, 2014, where I kind of stepped away from it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to go forward in this, so I think I'm going to just stay here. And then in 2015, a woman came through who was doing readings in Ifa. She was a priestess, a priestess of her own Ile, and she did a reading that basically said, "You need to be initiated to Oshun as of yesterday because
Oh, wow.
it will save your life." And
Oh, wow.
uh, so the that was like on a Friday or a Saturday. And then, it was on a Friday. And then on Saturday, I had one day to prepare. And then on Sunday, I received Oshun. And that's not the way it usually goes. I really want to put that out there. That's
Yeah.
my story is quite unique. Most of the time, people actually have to go through a
Yeah.
lot of different studies. But in this case, it was a special case to save my life from a calamity. And the calamity did manifest, and
Hmm.
in time, it was very difficult time, but I knew that I had received what I needed to get through it, and I did. And
Nice.
so now where I'm at is I still maintain a respectful space within the EFOC community. I will always promote the work of other teachers within that community. I don't personally teach that tradition. I'm still very conscientious of the fact that as a white woman, I can have a great relationship with the Orisha. And there are going to be times when I am meant to speak some message that Oshun has to the world, but that
Hmm.
I will not ever do anything. The commitment I've made is not to do anything in that tradition for money. That's actually part of my divination, is that in the tradition, I'm supposed to receive my work free of charge, and I'm supposed to do all work free of charge, which is a very specific divination. It's
Yeah.
not everybody gets that rule.
Yeah.
Um, but that's been the rule for me, and it's actually liberated me from feeling like worried about whether I belong, because I'm never going to take anything away from anybody who's meant to be holding that leadership space as a practitioner, as someone from within the culture. But I
Yeah.
do think that I make a good emissary in the world, for especially when I meet other white women who are interested in the Orisha, to kind of make the case for them to take the path of studying it in a traditional way, rather than just kind of making it up as they go along, which has been a problem in some of the new age communities. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and th- this has come up in with some of our guests because, and I used to co-host a radio show with Archpriestess Belladonna Laveau of the ATC, and I think we had Utu Witch Doctor on, and we kind of touched upon, because he's a white male, right? But he has been initiated in that field of the witch doctor, and that, yeah. And we talked about that those two words that we hear a lot, cultural appropriation. It comes up a lot. Um, but I feel, and I'll always say this, and this is what a lot of my guests who are practicing things that maybe they weren't born into or do not come from that culture, treat it with respect, honor the systems that they have in place, and be humble and willing to learn and go
mhm,
through what you have to go through, especially if you're being taught by someone who's in that culture and is saying,
yes,
hey, I see you, I think that you would be good at this. So hold your
yeah,
head down and be humble to that, rather than,
yes,
and I think you'll be okay. And if you think about it, us white people, um, America is full of borrowing. I mean, we were found on different cultures and different, and so there's always going to be that borrowing or whatnot in life, and you just got to treat it with respect. I'm not saying what we did to anyone in the past was respectful. I'm saying as far as practice, especially with our open. minds to practicing any kind of spiritual uh, path. Just be respectful and honor that.
I
Wouldn't you agree with
completely
that?
agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I love your 3 points there. That's so great. And I think we are in complicated times where, as part of what I was mentioning earlier about the internet, like we can
Mm-hmm.
actually have these much larger scale conversations in the public sphere around cultural appropriation versus appreciation,
Yep.
cultural exchange and borrowing versus extraction. And I know that, again, just like in every debate, there are going to be people on extremes of the sides, and that holds a polarity that
Mm-hmm.
creates the dynamic tension necessary for the conversations that are happening in the middle. And I
Yep.
think the majority of people want to do the right thing.
I
I
think so too.
presume that the majority of people in spiritual community are trying to get it right. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we won't sometimes be clumsy, and it doesn't mean we won't make mistakes. But I think that if you've got good teachers, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to understand that. They're not going to punish you for not knowing something
Yeah.
that you couldn't have known. I do think that the place I've seen that does, if there's one area that actually causes me personally discomfort, it is when I see other white women really sort of like stealing from other cultures and sort of marketing it as if it was their own. And I have
Yeah.
seen some of those things. And
Yeah.
when that happens, I feel like both two things. I feel like a sense of like shame, because I can see where there's something that's happening there that's not right, and I'm not sure how to change it, fix it. And then I feel painted by that brush, and I don't want
Mm.
to be painted by that brush. So then I just have to do my work.
Yeah.
And the second thing I think is that there's the humility that I have toward the people who are the leaders, the true leaders in these traditions that I've studied. And then there's the humility that I have toward the divine beings of those traditions, who I trust are making sure we all learn in the ways we're best meant to learn. And
Mm.
so if somebody is meant to learn by doing something in a prideful way and then having their head handed to them,
Right.
that's their learning. And if
Well,
somebody's going to learn by approaching really humbly, then that's their learning. And I actually do
yeah.
think at the end of the day, like I trust the divine beings more than I trust the humans, regardless.
Yeah. Well, and when you said you have those two polarities of people, and that's what allows us to have that conversation. I think that is the antagonists in our society or whatever that makes us aware of where am I at in this. You have to question when it's brought up, and sometimes you'll be like, oh my god, they're being overly sensitive, or oh my god, they're not being sensitive enough. It still makes you question, where am I in this spectrum, and
Yeah.
what can I do? And maybe I shouldn't, engage in trying to be the social justice warrior, but I can keep doing what I'm doing to show people that, hey, there are people that we want to do the right thing. And I feel that that's what, like you said, most of us want to do the right thing,
Yeah.
right?
And
So I love that. We can.
it's just very and I've learned
Oh,
over, after over a number of years, I've learned that it's really useless to try to shame somebody into being different than who they are. And
yeah,
it's just like a completely functionless tactic. And so to be able to sort of have the
yeah,
long game in mind, the patience and the long game in mind that says, every grasshopper is going to learn here. Like all of us have been the grasshopper. All of us have had to learn.
yes,
And I
yep,
can afford to be patient, even if I have to sort of set a boundary or say, oh, I don't really do it that way
hmm
or whatever. But like I can be patient. And maybe that's maybe an earth sign thing. Like I can be
Mhm.
patient. I'll wait you out. Like
Yeah.
I'll just be here
Yes,
waiting
yes.
until you're ready. And
I'll be
so
over I'll be over here. I'll be over here doing my thing.
doing
And
my
if you
thing.
want to ask me questions, I'm here. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It is an earth sign thing, I'd like to think. All right, I wanna move on because we could go on and on, but I want to make sure we get to some stuff.
of course.
You created a goddess temple app. Can you tell us about that? And then that'll bring us into some of the women's mysteries and that whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I created the Goddess Temple app as a space for people to just connect around goddess, spirituality, history, and research about goddesses. The Goddess Temple app serves as kind of the discussion and locus for the different activities of the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple. And for the past several, um, like maybe since 2021, I've been doing this. And for the maybe even 2020, I've been doing this, and basically it's a place where I host the lessons for my classes that I teach. We have discussion areas, we have private areas for the temple members who come to the ceremonies and the more like inner circle things that we do. I mean, anybody can join, but that's there's certain things that you have to join to access, like our moons. And
Yeah.
so the app is kind of like open for everybody. It's sort of like a space just to connect, and it's for it's for discussion and shares. So if people have written a blog post that they like, or maybe they visited a shrine somewhere, or they make or sell goddess oriented merchandise or
Yeah.
things like that, that's what it's for.
I love that. And so this brings us to, you are very much about the women's mysteries. You are into Dianic yourself, or at one point, or now the Dianic goddess spirituality. Is that how you identify a lot of your core beliefs?
Well, I'd say it's kind of like my witchcraft path really started with Dianic witchcraft in my 20s, and it sort of dovetailed when I was getting my master's in women's history. And so those two things sort of came together, and then all of what I do now, like whether I'm studying women in Buddhism or women in terms of like African traditional religions, or the women's embroideries of old Eastern Europe that would
Mhm.
tell the stories of the goddesses and fertility, or what, dances and songs. I've always looked for women's histories within everything that I study. And that's been in part because I, I think that these stories have not been told enough. There have been,
Mm.
there's so much time, like when you're growing up and you're going to school, you're studying, you get to learn about some women in history, not the ones I think were the most interesting or radical, I have to
Yeah,
say. Like,
right? I
you
know.
learn about some things, but you're not really learning about culture from a women's perspective.
Yeah.
You're learning very much about culture from a male perspective.
Yep.
So, how they sort of say history is written by the winners. Well, the unspoken part of that is that history is written by men.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so for me, focusing on this has been in my life, my journey for the last 20 plus years has been really about almost like there's this ship in the ocean of knowledge, and it's got way too many people on this side and it's tipping.
Mhm.
And I am over here standing on this side trying to balance the boat and
Yes.
being like, yes. And I don't want to take away from any of the amazing accomplishments of our brothers, of men, of
No.
binary people either. I want to just focus on the accomplishments of women because I think they often go underrated. And
Yes.
like women invented, for example, women invented beer. Women invented writing.
Oh.
Women
Oh.
invented, complicated methods of farming that sustained people through droughts and famines and other things. Women had basically created their entire own had to create basically their entire own medical system so that they
Yes.
could give birth
Yeah.
without help for a very long time before men even entered the chat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like in the
Yes.
medical realm. So there's like a huge unspoken history here. So that's
Yeah.
where I focus my work. And I would say, like, in terms of like, do I identify as Dianic? You know, I'm a high priestess in the Dianic tradition. I was ordained in 2006. I was ordained as the result of years of service in the Dianic tradition. Nowadays, I am all of it. I'm
Yeah.
all of the things.
Yeah.
And so, but women and our histories are still my main focus in everything that I do.
And the reason why I love this so much, and again, we could go on and on about this, but I, like I said earlier, I run a local red tent in my community, and I have been it has been so, because okay, so I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in my teenage years and in my 20s, um I always claimed that I don't get along with other women. They're too catty. They're too competitive. Blah, blah, right? And I feel like that was kind of, I think that just kind of came with the age, maybe. I don't know, because I met a lot of women that said that. As I got
Yeah.
older, I wanted to cultivate more meaningful relationships with women, because when it comes down to it, they're the ones that are going to understand what I'm going through. They're the ones that are going to have my back. And that's why Red Tent was really important to me, and is important, because we could come from different places, but when we come in a circle and we talk about those things that only us women understand, it is powerful. And that is the women's mysteries.
Yeah.
And there's a part, and I don't like to be controversial. I like to be as light and whatnot, but there's a part that sometimes I feel like I'm not allowed to talk about the women's mysteries, because there's a lot of people that say that we are not honoring non-binary or trans women, and I don't want to get into that. I just
Mhm.
want to say that for me personally, it is so important to understand the women's mysteries. It is so important for me to have these relationships with my sisters, and I love that you are practicing that. And I don't know, we could talk about being met with any kind of, because I'll tell you what, running red tents in public, I get a lot of,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and I don't,
I
like I
totally
said.
understand.
Yeah,
I have actually like really, I really believe that everybody on the planet deserves to have the spaces in which we can commune around shared experiences, and where then sharing in that shared experience becomes a basis of self-understanding, so that we become more compassionate, more loving, more caring, more intelligent, more capable, more empowered, so that we can go out into the world and be a productive part of the bigger society that's including everybody. So I think that
yes,
there are wheels within wheels here. Like, and I'm going to just like, I want to just look at it through a completely different lens. So I'm going to just take this and we're going to go right
yeah,
like here. Okay. I
yeah,
am
absolutely,
not a mother. I don't have children. I've never adopted a child and I've never given birth to a child. So if there were to be in my temple a gathering of mothers having Mother's Day brunch because they're mothers, because they've adopted, fostered, or given birth,
yeah,
no matter how much I love my cats, I don't belong there. I wouldn't
yeah,
go be in that brunch. Now, does that mean that at other times when we're here to talk about like what it is to deal with sexism, what it is to deal with living inside a patriarchal narrative, what it is to deal with like
Mhm.
people demeaning you at work if you're, or being hard on you if you're having your period, or if you're having, I can gather around any topic with them and we can
Yeah.
find that common ground. So I think that
Yeah.
sometimes we get caught up in like these labels. And I think that the labels are really useful
Yeah.
insofar as they describe specific experiences, and that we should, all of us, have safe places to discuss those experiences. I myself have been told by friends who were trans and non-binary, like, we really love you, but we don't want you at our circle because we're kind of doing like a thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I get it. I am told. And I
Absolutely.
think that kind of just
Yep.
goes back to this other thing. There are always going to be people who, there are always going to be people who don't like a woman of any sort, whether she's trans, whether she's cisgender, however she identifies. There's always going to be people who don't like a woman being out loud, happy, and proud of herself in public. And so
Right.
they're going to find any reason that they can to attack that.
Yeah. You're
So,
absolutely right.
so really, if like, a group that included trans and non-binary sisters was having a group setting and they were all like happy and making noise, there are going to be people who show up to put that down, to try to put that down.
Absolutely.
And I do think that when we gather around the, kind of physical and biological mysteries associated with menstruation, that's what we're talking about specifically, like
Yeah.
that capacity in those form of bodies, there are going to be people who feel like they need to tear that down. But I really hope, I pray, my fervent prayer is that we all get to the point where we're like, I love you to have whatever you need so that when we are together, we are all better. So,
Absolutely. Oh my God, clink.
you know,
Oh, I gotta pour. Clink and drink to that because that is what it's all about.
yeah.
We
And I,
truly
I never want anyone to feel excluded. I never want
no,
anyone to feel
no.
bad. But I myself don't feel excluded or bad if I'm not in the circle of mothers, or if I'm not in the circle of boy moms, or if I'm not in the circle of women who have stopped
Yeah,
bleeding. I don't feel bad if I'm not included in the trans and non-binary circle, because I know that
yeah,
everybody deserves that space. And it is hard
yep,
because I do think that all of our movements, all of the movements that awaken, that awaken a consciousness around the deep wounding that has happened in our world around the feminine, what's called the feminine, like, which has so
yeah,
many flavors, but like, I think
absolutely,
all
yeah,
of us who are in that feel that wound, and that sometimes that wound and the neediness and the pain from within that wound overcomes our good sense of giving each other a little bit of space to just be. And so,
yes,
my ideal at the end of the day, my ideal is that everybody has exactly what they need. And not only that they have what they need, but that in order for us to have, all of us, for us to have what we need, we don't need to feel like anyone else shouldn't.
exactly. And I'm so glad. And I like I said, it could get controversial. I don't. We're not. And I hope anyone who's watching knows that I am an ally, I am a supporter, but specifically when we talk about women's mysteries, when we talk about red tent type of stuff, there are specifics that not everyone can relate to. And I love that you said there are things that you as a cisgendered woman can't relate to other cisgendered women. You haven't given birth, and it's okay because guess what? Maybe you want to hear what is that like? What did you go through? I want to hear what women, however they identify as, whether they were born that way, whether they are transgender, I want to hear about your struggles because I can guarantee you my struggle sees your struggle. And
Exactly.
and that's what it comes down
That's
to.
it.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
Yeah.
what heals that wound ultimately, is
Yep.
us
Let's
really
heal.
seeing each other and being like, "There's no argument here."
Yeah. My struggle sees your struggle. Yeah. So I want to talk about your next week. The Aquarian Tabernacle Church is having their Spring Mysteries Festival, and you are going to be a guest speaker.
Yes, I am. I'm really excited that
Yeah.
Bella and Dusty invited me to come. I've never been. I've heard about the Spring Mysteries for many years from
Ooh.
various people who went to them. You know, it's quite a West Coast legend. It's because the
Mm-hmm.
ATC has been going on for so long. And so I'm really excited. I'm going to go experience it for the first time. I'm teaching about Eleusis, the history of the city of Eleusis, which in Greece, they actually call it Elefsina. And we're going to
Yeah.
talk about the different pronunciations and how those
Oh.
pronunciations happen. We're also going to talk about the archaeological site. We're going to talk about how in the 20th, 19th and 20th centuries, it actually became an industrial site. It's gone through like ups and downs. And now in 2023, Eleusis has been, or Elefsis has been named one of the European capitals of culture as part of this renaissance that they're trying to create for the city, its history, its environmentalism, its arts. So it's really exciting. I'm happy to have something to contribute. I actually, somewhere here, I know, maybe Bella and Dusty won't hear this, but I'm bringing them a little rock from Eleusis that I picked up when I was there.
Oh. Just
Um,
between us squirrels and the wall, we won't say
you know,
anything.
just and I'm planning to go and talk about that. And I'm really excited. I'm going to take part in the mysteries, which I'm very excited to do.
Yay!
Yeah,
Yes.
and then I mean, I could barely like get home and like take 3 breaths, and then I'm going to Summer Magic Fest in
Yes.
Orlando,
Well,
where
before we talk about that,
oh
I
yes,
want you said something earlier about your unique topics from your travels, and you've got a pilgrimage
yes,
coming
I
up. Can you
do,
tell us
I
about
do.
that?
Yeah, actually, in the last 5 years, more and more of my work has been centered around taking people on pilgrimage to sacred places. So I've been to the Temple of Hecate at Lagina. I've been to Aphrodisias in Turkey, the site of one of the largest existing Aphrodite temples. Um,
Ooh,
that is still here. I've gone to Greece, to Delphi, Cyprus, England, Glastonbury.
ooh,
And this year, I'm actually going to Egypt. I
oh,
have finally, like, I feel like you kind of have to like earn your way to go to Egypt. Like, you have to like
right?
really prepare and work for it and earn it, because it's not like going all the way across the world just opens its doors and is easy for everybody. So have to think and plan and get ready. And I'm a devotee of Aset, of Isis, in the Temple of
Oh,
Isis.
wonderful.
I dedicated in 2014. So I'm so excited. So
Oh
in
my
September,
God.
the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple is partnering with the Dragonfly Tours, which are in Switzerland, and they are one, and it's Stephanie and Ali. Ali is Egyptian, and he's been running a professional tour company there for over a decade, like more like 15 years. And so
Oh,
he knows everybody. He's from there. His family lives there. We're going to get to go and be in the beauty of Egypt. We're going to land in Cairo. We're going to sail on a ship. We're going to be in the Nile. We're going to go to Luxor. We're going to go to Dendera. We're going to see the places. And I'm really excited
yeah.
about it. So it's been a
Oh my
huge part of my work
God.
the last 5 years.
I love that you said you kind of have to earn that because I will, if anyone has watched my show, look at how I just claimed my show because my husband's not here. I'll tell him later that I now own the show and he doesn't.
You wrote it.
um, our show, I've always talked about Egyptian mythology and how I there is a almost like I approach Egypt and Egyptian mythology with a bowed head. Like there is something about it that it doesn't
Yes.
scare me, but I'm like, I need to be if I want to study it,
Yes.
but I need to set aside a lot of time and I need to take it very seriously. And so I like that you said that about Egypt. You have to kind of earn that. You can travel places, but when you're going to Egypt, you've you've arrived. Like you're going,
Yeah.
and especially on a spiritual level, because I feel like that is just where everything kind of started. You know, it's very old, and uh, it is something that, yes, it is humbling. And so it just reminds me of what I've been saying forever about, I have so many people that know so much about Egyptian mythology and the Egyptian gods and goddesses, and I've dabbled, but
Yeah.
I am not, I by any means, I cannot have a conversation about it. I will ask questions and listen, but I am not an expert. It's
Well,
not that I'm not interested. It's like, when I do that, I'm going to do it hard. You know what I mean?
you know, when you really think about it, in like the year 2500 BCE, there were already in Egypt archaeologists studying ancient Egypt. So
Yeah.
in 2500 BCE, there were people who were studying 5000 BCE.
Yeah.
We're, you know, what we're talking about goes back so far and has a deep, deep root. And Greece wouldn't have been Greece without what Egypt did. Rome
Yeah.
wouldn't have been Rome without what Egypt did. So obviously, the cultures that come after that are influenced by like Greco-Roman
Yep.
structures
It's
owe their
Egypt.
debt to Egypt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and Kemet. So
Yep.
I'm really excited to go. I can't wait. We're, you know, still accepting applications for the pilgrimage. We are just going to have such an incredible time. And where I really felt through it for a long time before I was like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it. I'm going to learn for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And like, if anyone
oh, go
wants
ahead.
to come with me, they can go to mountshasta.goddesstemple.com and pull down pilgrimages. You can learn more about it.
Well,
Just
and
to say,
I have your website, priestess Yeshe.com. Is that a good place where they can kind of find all the stuff?
yeah, if they click through there to the temple, then they'll find it.
Okay, good. Because yeah, so we've got that on there, and so anyone that's interested in finding out more about this, finding out more about our guests. So before we, you know, we're at an hour. You know, people have a short attention span. We could talk forever. You're amazing, by the
Oh,
way. I
I'm
love
so
you.
enjoying our conversation, Lola. Thank you
Oh
so
my
much for
gosh.
having
So
me. I can't even like thank you enough. And I'm so sorry I couldn't meet your husband, but I'm going to get to meet him
we
when you
will.
guys come to Summer Magic in the future.
We will. And speaking of Summer Magic Fest, I'm going to bring in the lovely Trisha from, yeah, hi, there you are. Uh, so Yeshe is going to be also speaking at Summer Magic Fest, which is June 8th through the 11th. I had to read my banner going across.
Good, because I can't remember.
I know. I'm high tech. I'm high tech. I'm telling you.
You are. This is awesome.
So,
I love it. Yeah,
Trisha,
Lola loves wine.
I know. I throw that in when I have nothing else. I'm just like, yeah, Lola loves wine. Let's just put that in there. So for those of you who have been watching our show, we have had several guests that are going to be headliners and speakers at Summer Magic Fest, which is in Orlando, Florida. Trisha, can you tell
Orlando.
us about it? Yes, Yesha's going to be there. So can you tell
Yes,
us
she
about
is.
that?
And I just heard last night that we're doing so she does our opening and closing rituals, and I'm so excited that this year we're going to be doing honoring of I guess like the endangered species during our main ritual, and then we're going to be honoring like the plants in the opening and the crystals in the closing. So excited about that. And then she has a talk about Aphrodite, right? A couple, yes. And she's just integral. She's one of our repeat headliners that come back to help us put this together. So she's definitely very much respected and honored and welcome at Summer Magic Fest. So Yeah, that's happening, and we're located a mile from the airport, so anybody can come in and fly in and get a free shuttle to the airport. We start on Thursday, we end on Sunday, and yeah, it's very easy. And you have our website there, yes. So that's it. I know we've gone over time, but I'm super excited about this event.
It's okay.
And
it's okay.
Yeah, hotel event in Florida in June. We have a gorgeous hotel with a pool and a gorgeous atrium where all this light comes in, and our festival takes place inside. So, and I'll never forget Ivo Dominguez saying how important it is to have hotel events for those who are mobility challenged, those who can't stand the outdoor, like going to the hippy dippy fests, which I run some of those too. We're in the woods, but this is a totally different thing, and I'm so excited.
For us older women who are perimenopausal, I'm not saying I am, but I sweat like a 2-bit horn church all the time. So being in Florida,
we need our air conditioning for June in Orlando, 100%. I have to say, I love Summer Magic Fest. I went to PantheaCon, which went on for 20 years in the Bay Area. I went to that for many years and I loved it. Really beautiful gathering, great energy. I know that it wasn't, toward the end always so easy, but really for like a long time, it was so fantastic. And the energy was so pristine. And I have to say, when I went to Summer Magic last year, I walked in, the welcome, the kindness, the friendliness, the quality of the presenters, the thoughtfulness of the schedule and how it was all laid out so that it was not overwhelming, and of course the air conditioning. But I agree. I completely agree. I think hotel events are really necessary. They're accessible. They take a layer of having to tend one's basic needs out of the equation. So you focus on what you're learning and doing. And Summer Magic has that energy of the early days of PantheaCon, where it was truly loving, truly friendly, people genuinely care about each other, and where everybody is bringing their best selves. Everybody is there to be their magical selves. And it wasn't competitive. It wasn't weird vibes. Sometimes, not to I like all the events that I go to now. Nowadays, I only go when I'm invited to an event because just you get so busy and I'm running the temple. When I'm invited and I get to go to do something, I notice that the events that people are creating that are really from the heart, it shows. And it shows with Summer Magic, and they're very, very heartful, and they make everybody feel really included, and everybody is being seen in their most magical selves. And it shows. Everybody walked out of there sparkling last year, absolutely sparkling.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, and I'm going to see you at Spring Mysteries.
I know. And I was saying, I'm not going this year. I've done a lot with Spring Mysteries. I also I perform in burlesque. We have a big show going on. And I needed to take a little break because I was getting a little burnt out, and I don't ever want to not enjoy what I do. And so but I'm telling you, FOMO is real because I'm seeing all the stuff. But next year I will be at Spring Mysteries, and hopefully we will be at Summer Magic Fest. So we can meet all these wonderful people. Maybe we could get a little discount for promoting all this.
Yeah, but you should. Maybe you'll get some free tickets.
Maybe something. I don't know. Just an idea. Nice. So, well, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been amazing. Yeshe, you are awesome. Yes. I would love to have you come back so we can talk about more stuff. I mean, seriously, this has been amazing.
Lola, thank you. From the wine to the sparkling conversation to the empathy and understanding and care for all of your people who are watching. I love to be here, and it's so great to be welcomed into this community that you've created. And
Oh, thank
I'm, totally looking forward to the next time our paths cross. And of course, I can't wait to see you, Trisha, in a week. I'll definitely be coming and throwing my arms around you for a big hug.
Yay!
Have we made you a fan of Witches and Wine?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm still a witch. What Eric said, Trisha's partner said, I'm a bros and brews kind of guy. I'm also bros and brews here, but a feminine bro.
There's actually another Witches and Wine show on YouTube. It's very professionally done, and I was actually going to have her as a guest. But I like to say what sets us apart is, me. No, I'm kidding. But also, we do educate people about our wine. I think that's important.
I love that part.
There's also a show called Witches, Weed, and Whiskey. And it's these three, you got to look it up. It's these three just wonderful older witches sitting around, drinking whiskey, smoking weed, and amazing. So I'm cross promoting. So I want to thank my guests. Thank you so much. Thank you, Trisha, for setting all this up. I love you so much. And I want to let everyone know, if you want to donate to our coven, Children of the Crossroads, we have a PayPal. It is PayPal me, COTCATC. We also have a Venmo, because we're highfalutin. It is COTCATC on our Venmo. It is not required. It is greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions about our show, if you want to be a guest, if you have ideas, you can see. I don't have my person I do this with, so usually I'll go.
What did you say?
I'll go. Yeah, you want to do it for us, Trish? Would you like to say our email address, Crossroads Coven? Okay, here we go. So if you're interested in us and want to email us, you can email us at
crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, what was that again, Trish?
Oh my gosh, that's crossroadscoven@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone. And remember, always be so kind to one another. Walk with the goddess. And until next time, blessed be. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.